In the headlines, will the two Koreas be able to come to high-level talks later this week, with North Korea taking an issue with anti-Pyongyang leaflets? Prosecutors seek the death sentence for the captain of the ferry that sank back in April, killing some 300 people for abandoning passengers. And Ukrainians overwhelmingly back several pro-Europe parties in a landmark parliamentary election on Sunday. Happy Monday, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Coming to you live from Seoul, I am Kang Chery. The prospects for a planned round of high-level talks between the two Koreas remain very much in doubt. South Korea has proposed this meeting for this Thursday, but instead of responding to this offer, North Korea has lodged another protest against the anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaigns by South Korean activists. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Responding to North Korea's protest against the latest anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaign, South Korea on Monday urged the North to come to a planned second round of high-level talks.
We maintain the stance that the government has no legal grounds to ban activities by civic groups. North Korea should give its answer to our proposed date and place for the second round of high-level talks, which the two Koreas have previously agreed on.
2 weeks have passed since South Korea proposed holding the talks on October 30th at the border village of Panmunjom. Remaining mum on that offer, the North claimed Sunday that although a daytime leaflet launch on Saturday was scrapped, the South Korean government turned a blind eye to a group of activists who sent about 20,000 leaflets that night. It warned that high-level talks will not be held under the current atmosphere. Experts say the planned meeting could be postponed indefinitely.
Unless the South Korean government shows a firm determination to prevent further leaflet campaigns, or North Korea promises never to bring up the issue again, the possibility of talks between the two sides is very low.
A group of South Korean activists says it will send more anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border this Thursday. And experts say the question of whether the government decides to step in this time or not will determine the direction of inter-Korean relations down the road. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
A Japanese delegation will be in North Korea through Thursday to reinvestigate the abductions of Japanese nationals by North Korean Asians back in the 70s and 80s. The focus for the 10 Japanese officials, including the top diplomat for Asian affairs, Junichi Ihara, will be obtaining information on 12 abductees recognized by Tokyo who are still as unaccounted for. Pyongyang has maintained that 8 have passed away and 4 never entered the country. The investigation into the Japanese abductees in North Korea began in July in exchange for Tokyo lifting sanctions against Pyongyang and providing humanitarian aid. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says he has no intention of revising the 1993 Kono Statement, which acknowledges Japan's sexual enslavement of Asian women during World War II. Abe's remarks came Monday during a meeting with Korea's National Assembly Speaker Chung Eui-hwa, who is on a 3-day visit to Japan. The Kono Statement was based on the accounts of 16 Korean victims of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement and has been a bone of contention between Seoul and Tokyo. Following the talks, the two expressed hope for better relations moving forward as next year marks 50th anniversary of normalizing their diplomatic ties between the two countries. Moving on to the ongoing trial for those responsible for April's tragic Seoul ferry disaster. Prosecutors are now seeking the death penalty for the captain, who was charged with a negligent homicide, and life in prison for other key crew members. Kwon So-ah tells us more.
The prosecution has spoken. It is seeking the strongest punishment possible in Korean law for Seoul ferry captain Lee Jun-seok, the death penalty. They have also demanded life in prison for 3 key crew members and 15 to 30 years in prison for 11 others. More than 6 months have passed since the tragic Seoul ferry accident left more than 300 passengers dead or missing. And after deliberating through 29 trial sessions and pouring over 20,000 pages of evidence, prosecutors have made their penalty requests for 15 crew members for charges of negligence of duty and violation of maritime law, which demands they should have been the last to leave the ship. The crew was accused of fleeing the ship without evacuating hundreds of passengers left on board, but repeatedly instructing them to stay put in their cabins. After prosecutors indicted 4 senior crew members, including Captain Lee Jun-seok in May, on charges of murder by willful negligence, the public's attention has been focused on whether they would be handed the death penalty. Prior to Monday's session, Captain Lee was said to have wished for punishment, admitting to all of the charges against him, with the exception of murder. Some families of the victims who were in the gallery for Monday's session had earlier pleaded for the defendants to be charged with the maximum penalty possible. Sentences are expected to be issued in the 3rd week of next month. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Korea's film industry has taken off in recent years and currently ranks as the 7th largest in the world. And on this week's Industry Insight, our Park Ji-won reports on the success of the country's multiplexes and where they're finding their new growth.
4 out of 5 movie theaters in Korea are multiplexes, and of them, more than 40% are CGV branches, the #1 movie theater chain in Korea. CGV opened Korea's very first multiplex in Seoul in 1998. Since then, they have launched a number of innovative features, including the nation's first 3D and 4D screens, as well as Korea's first premium screen called Gold Class in 2001.
The cost for this premium seat is 3 times higher than a normal ticket, but you can enjoy free snacks and beverages, as well as this spacious and comfy sofa where you can relax and enjoy the movie.
Another key to this success is the Cultureplex, offering more than movies. There's gourmet popcorn, exhibitions, and performances, giving moviegoers the whole package of cultural pampering.
CGV provides better membership benefits compared to other movie chains. There are also a lot of restaurants nearby, and it has a good concession menu.
Number 2 in the field is Lotte Cinema, taking up about 35% of the market. It's looking to take its motto of happy memories further with its newest theater at Lotte World Mall in Seoul. It's Asia's largest multiplex with 21 screens, one of which is the world's largest projection screen as recognized by Guinness World Records.
It offers premium facilities with a lot of amenities. The interior is modern and clean.
But industry insiders agree that the domestic market doesn't have much room for additional growth. About 200 million movie tickets were sold in Korea last year, meaning each person in Korea watched more than 4 films a year, and that's even higher than the US figure.
We can say Korea's movie theater industry has pretty much reached full saturation and is seeing its limit. That's why CGV and Lotte Cinema are focusing on expanding their presence in foreign markets.
Since CGV opened its first foreign branch in Shanghai in 2006, it's been expanding aggressively overseas with the same strategy of premium service.
It's really about the movie-going experience, the premium experience of sound, screen, seat, as well as a Cultureplex model. Ultimately, those things will work abroad, and that's absolutely part of our strategy.
Lotte Cinema has a similar approach. It started with the Vietnamese market back in 2008.
We are the #2 movie chain in Vietnam, and we aim to be #1 by 2018. By then, we hope to have at least 60 branches in Vietnam and in China, with a goal of raking in some $300 million in annual revenue.
Both CGV and Lotte Cinema say they are focused on China and Southeast Asia for the initial phase of their global investment. But ultimately, they want to expand elsewhere based on things that haven't worked for them here in Korea. Both hope that in the coming decades, their branches that spread throughout the world rake in more revenue than those based here in Korea. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Kang Chery for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on Arirang TV.
Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, finding ways to persuade. The U.S. Federal Reserve is widely expected to announce its exit from the market this week, meaning an end to its multi-billion-dollar bond buying program. And here's a view that Korea could be the hardest hit in Asia in case of a sudden change in the U.S. monetary policy. Kim Ji-yeon tells us more.
The International Monetary Fund says Korea could take the heaviest blow among the countries in Asia if the U.S. exit from quantitative easing sparks a sudden rise in U.S. interest rates. Romain Duval, the IMF's head of the Regional Studies Division of the Asia-Pacific Department, says that it is quite possible that Asia's fourth largest economy will experience a shock as a result of the changes in U.S. monetary policy because Korea is vulnerable to external shifts. He says the impact will likely lead to a capital flight and a slowdown in exports to the United States. The IMF predicts Korea's growth rate could drop by nearly 1 percentage point if the U.S. interest rate were to rise suddenly, a move that's expected if the U.S. Federal Reserve announces an end to its multi-billion-dollar bond buying program when it meets later this week. Other Asian countries are likely to experience smaller changes. India's growth rate is expected to drop by less than 0.2 percentage point. But despite the dismal outlook for Korea, Duval says there's no need to panic just yet. The effects of the impact will be minimized because Seoul is able to utilize its financial and monetary policies to deal with external changes. Duval says it all comes down to how the Korean government handles the effects of the rise in the U.S. interest rate, saying it should pursue austerity measures and let its currency depreciate in the event of capital outflows. The IMF says the Korean economy could drop into the low 3% range following a U.S. interest rate hike, while Seoul projects the economy will grow to around 4% next year. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
But it looks like some top economic policymakers here in Korea have brushed aside the International Monetary Fund's concerns about the Korean economy. A Bank of Korea governor, for one, Lee Ju-yeol, says that a drastic hike in U.S. interest rates is unlikely, saying the U.S. Federal Reserve is fully aware of the possible impact of the move. Korea's Finance Minister Choi Kyung-won also said the capital outflow from Korea will be limited, even if the U.S. raises its interest rates, citing the Korean economy's sufficient FX reserves as well as fiscal soundness. President Park Geun-hye has expressed hopes to the governor of the U.S. state of Virginia that his latest visit to Korea will help strengthen economic cooperation between the two countries. Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, who plans to visit a number of Korean companies during his stay, said during their meeting today that he is seeking to increase investment between Korea and Virginia. The governor played a key role in implementing a dual name system for a body of water between Korea and Japan and Virginia school textbooks earlier this year. Back in March, Virginia became the first U.S. state to use the Korean name East Sea alongside the Japanese name Sea of Japan in school text. On the sidelines of the International Telecommunication Union in the southern port city of Busan, the Health IT Show opened today, showcasing the latest in healthcare technologies. And not only can they make our lives easier and healthier, but also make us smarter. Our Shin Se-min sends this report from Busan.
Forget the hard, lumpy beds you find in most hospitals. Smart beds like these provide patients with a more comfortable experience.
With this bed, patients can monitor and adjust temperatures and level of humidity in their rooms. It also measures every move of a patient thanks to a non-contact sensors in the bed, giving doctors and nurses valuable information, especially during emergencies.
The smart devices in the healthcare system don't just end there. It goes way beyond. Smart technology is also enabling patients to keep track of their own blood pressure and diabetes at home.
And we, as doctors in hospitals, we need to recognize that patients are smart and they have the ability to look at information, learn about themselves. We need to encourage that. We need to help them learn about their health so they can stay healthy and so they can control their chronic conditions and stay out of the hospitals. Once they're sick, sure, we can do a lot of great technology things in the hospitals. But again, we need to move things to the left. We need to keep people out of the hospitals.
Calling Korea a hotbed of technology, Dr. Sun said the country should take advantage of new technologies to make the healthcare system more efficient.
You know, there are too many patients that need to be seen, and there are not enough doctors. Doctors need to not be so insecure. I should get to the point where I'm taking care of patients for more than 5 minutes, maybe for 15 or 20 or even 30 minutes. We're not helping patients effectively by taking care of them 5 minutes at a time.
Looking forward to the day he can spend more time examining his patients, Dr. Sun said he hopes healthcare systems evolve to provide higher quality treatment over the coming years. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Busan.
And in addition to hosting the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference very much underway as we speak, Korea has been re-elected to the Council of the ITU, the Information and Communications arm of the UN. This is the 7th time Korea has been elected a council member. Korea, along with China and India, garnered one of the 13 seats allocated for the Asian region. As part of the 48-member council, Korea will be involved in making policies to ensure the ITU is on top of the telecommunications industry. Korea's term will start in January next year and continues for 4 years until 2018. The remaining votes from Ukraine's parliamentary election on Sunday are being counted, but exit polls show that the pro-Western bloc has won a sweeping victory. And for more, Paulie is joining us from the News Center. Paul, Ukraine has endured one of its biggest challenges in modern history, which began with a political revolt earlier this year and continues with the crisis against pro-Russia rebels in the west part of the country.
That's right, and it's those same challenges that this new government will be facing moving forward, and ones that Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko appears to be more confident in tackling now with the backing of a pro-European majority vote. Talks are already underway between the top 2 leading political parties to form a coalition to push through radical reforms, unite a broken nation, and move one step closer to EU membership. Our Connie Lee has more.
It's an overwhelming win for pro-Western parties in Ukraine's parliamentary elections. Citing exit polls on Sunday evening, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko declared victory, saying more than 3/4 of voters backed his political bloc.
The results of the election bring the firm victory of all democratic, pro-European, pro-Ukrainian forces. And that gives us a lot of opportunity to develop, to provide the reform.
Official tallies are expected later Monday, but a partial vote count earlier in the day showed that more voters support Poroshenko's plans to end a separatist conflict and carry out democratic reforms. It seems the People's Front Party, led by Poroshenko's ally, Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk, will come in second out of 29 other parties, with over 21% of the vote so far. In light of the victory, President Poroshenko said he will start talks on forging a new coalition in parliament come Monday. The election comes 7 months after the revolution in Ukraine that took down former President Viktor Yanukovych, and during a time when parts of eastern Ukraine remain under the unofficial control of pro-Russia separatists. However, the voting shows that the country is trying to steer clear of Russia and instead take a pro-European path. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And turning to the global Ebola watch, 3 states in the U.S. have come under fire after enacting new quarantine measures for suspected Ebola patients that some are calling a violation of human rights. Paul, last week, many people were welcoming stricter health screenings at major airports, but now people are up in arms over the latest move. Why is that?
Well, the new rules that were recently introduced in New York, New Jersey, and Illinois require travelers from West Africa that had contact with Ebola patients to submit to mandatory quarantine for 21 days, even if they do not exhibit any symptoms of the virus. Casey Hickox, a nurse returning from Sierra Leone, was the first person on Friday to be isolated under the stricter measures. She is now reportedly taking legal action against the state health authorities, claiming her civil liberties are being violated. During an interview on NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday, the U.S. Director for Doctors Without Borders said she was completely confused about the orders.
We have put in place over the past few months protocols that are based on well-known medical science and accepted, and those protocols have been strictly followed by our staff. They consist of self-monitoring, very strict self-monitoring.
Meanwhile, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, has begun her trip to West Africa to assess the global response to the Ebola outbreak. Power warned that more medical staff was urgently needed for the hardest-hit countries and said it was important not to stigmatize health workers that travel overseas to help address the epidemic.
And protest leaders in Hong Kong have suspended a referendum that would have paved the way for the pro-democracy movement's next steps following a month of citywide rallies. What exactly happened? Are we seeing signs of division for this coalition, or just a cautious move forward?
Well, it's definitely bringing to light the lack of organization and cohesion among the 3 main protest groups. Leaders of the Hong Kong Federation of Students, as well as the Occupy Central movement, had organized an electronic vote that was to take place starting Sunday night, but it was called off just hours before it was to launch. The straw poll was to focus on reform measures proposed by senior Hong Kong government officials during formal talks last Tuesday, which ended without a breakthrough. Addressing media on Monday, protest leaders stressed the setback didn't signify an end to the movement.
Well, we sincerely apologize for the occupiers in different protest areas because we understand and have heard from them that the voting today there's lots of conflict and lots of different opinions. And after fervent discussion that we understand their point of view and would like to suspend the whole voting because we have different concerns regarding the voting.
Activist leaders have called on demonstrators and citizens alike to visit the main protest site in Hong Kong's financial district over the course of the following nights to jointly discuss the future direction of the pro-democracy movement.
And Hollywood has been abuzz lately with the release of Christopher Nolan's latest film, Interstellar. Very much looking forward to it. The highly anticipated sci-fi adventure finally hitting the big screen. Not a minute too soon. Got completely sucked in by the trailers. So what can we expect from Nolan's latest film?
Well, the director himself said that the cinematic experience will be more of a throwback to 2001: A Space Odyssey rather than his past work involving action-packed thrillers such as Inception. But nonetheless, he stressed that audiences should be prepared to be blown away. Interstellar made its worldwide premiere at the iconic Chinese Theater in Los Angeles on Sunday night. The red carpet event featured the star-studded cast that includes Oscar winners Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. Nolan praised his actors, describing them as the most crucial piece of the film.
Well, it's always a bit of a struggle to get the right people. You know, you have who you have in mind. In this case, you know, Matthew and Jessica, you know, all people that once I'd finished the script, I was very excited to get involved with the project. And luckily, you know, I was able to convince all three of them to do it, which doesn't always happen. And it meant putting together a great ensemble. And then, you know, with Michael Caine and so forth, had a really great team.
Interstellar is scheduled to begin its nationwide rollout in the U.S. on November 7th, but fans here in Korea will get their first chance to see the film in local theaters next Thursday. Chery?
All right, thank you so much, Paul, for those stories, and we'll see you back here in just about 2 hours.
Hope your week is off to a great start, everyone. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. The weather here in Korea is getting chillier by the day as cold air from the north moves in across the peninsula. And earlier this morning, we woke up to winter-like conditions with a big gap in temperatures between the day and night. Along with the cold and brisk winds, dry air remains along the eastern coast of Gangwon province. And at the moment, we are enjoying clear autumn conditions nationwide. As for Tuesday, things are shaping up to be even chillier than today, and morning lows may dip below 0 degrees in some regions. And it looks like similar conditions will continue for a while before nationwide showers fall on Friday and Saturday. On to tomorrow's readings. Seoul hits 20, while Daegu and Busan reach 20. Seoul hits 18, that is. On to other regions. Jeju reaches 20, Daegu, Dokdo 14, Mount Kumgang hits 8. That'll do it for now. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, and that will do it for this edition of Arirang News. Thanks for watching.